Josie Ranch Waterwise Garden today to talk about irrigation, plant selection, soil preparation, and maintaining mulch on our garden in order to conserve water in the landscape. The reason we're here today to talk about water conservation in the landscape is because of our continued drought, but also for long-range plans. As we look at the area develop and grow and grow and grow, our water providers need to have more water for us to be able to use and keep our beautiful, beautiful landscapes. But what if we provided you with a challenge, and that is to use less water in your landscape so we have more water for things like drinking and firefighting and all the other reasons that we need water. And so it's a real challenge to look at our landscape and see where we can conserve water. So today what we're going to do is talk about irrigation and look at the ways we can look at our irrigation system maybe a little bit differently so we can save water there. We're going to look at the design, we're going to look at the different ways water is applied with an irrigation system, and then we're going to look into maybe converting an existing system to drip irrigation, which is the most efficient way to water. So first of all, let's look at the average irrigation system and what type of applicator methods that we use in our irrigation system. An irrigation system is a series of pipes that deliver water to the different areas in your yard. These are called zones, or hydrozones actually. And by the type of plants you have in those zones, it makes a difference how much water you're going to need. And so a lawn area is irrigated very, very differently, different rate, different long length of time by your irrigation system. Your shrub area is different, your ground cover area is different, your flower area is different. There's no zone that is going to be run exactly the same way. And so we can look at the different devices, delivery devices of the water to see how that is done. So first of all, what I have here is a large rotor that can go in a landscape and irrigate a large area. The water comes out under high pressure and it is going to spray a certain pattern and it's going to spray a certain distance. And you can change these out to regulate that, and you can do a little adjustment on the emitter itself. So I'm going to show this first, and as you can see, wow, it's coming out very, very high pressure, and the pressure here it's coming out is about 60. And that's a little bit high for this device, but you can see how it comes out and it throws at a great, great distance. And like I said, this is a little bit adjustable here. I can adjust the pattern and I can adjust the throw a little tiny bit. Now this device right here is the average spray irrigation nozzle that you would have in your landscape. And as you can see, again, we have a little bit high pressure here, and so instead of putting it out as a spray, it's putting out at a mist. You can see I'm getting more wet than the area that I want irrigated because of this high pressure. So pressure has a lot to do with how your irrigation system is going to work efficiently. And so if you have the pressure too high, you're going to get that what we call overspray. You're going to get that misting. And because of that misting then, a lot of that is going to be lost to evaporation and displacement. The wind is barely blowing here, but yet all of that was blowing back at me. If you have a situation like this where the pressure is too high for your irrigation devices to work properly, then you can go back to where your irrigation system branches off from your household water right by your backflow preventer, and you can put a pressure regulator in there. You need a certain pressure at each head, and then going through the series of pipes and series of pipes, you have to know exactly what pressure you need here and therefore exactly what pressure you need at the branch where it branches off from your main water. The other thing I have right here is a new irrigation nozzle that you can actually switch out your spray nozzles and use this new one. This new one is called a multi-stream rotor. And the advantage of the multi-stream rotor is that it puts water droplets out in heavier droplets. And therefore you don't lose so much to evaporation and displacement. And so I'm going to turn this one on so that you can see how this works. And you can see it's coming out in a stream pattern. It's going to rotate and rotate around. All of these devices come out in a certain pattern, full circle, half circle, quarter circle, or even 3/4 circle. And when you think that you might want to replace your spray nozzle with one of these multi-stream nozzle, you can raise your efficiency by anywhere from 30 to 60% depending on how good your irrigation system was to begin with. If you want to do that, upgrade your system to these multi-stream nozzles instead of the spray nozzles. You can get a licensed irrigator to do that, or you can do that yourself. It's simply a matter of looking at your irrigation system, looking at every sprinkler, and writing notes down. Do you need a quarter circle, half circle, full circle, 3/4 circle, and then go buy the replacement. They simply come up like this. This is how you purchase them. And in order to replace the spray nozzle with this, you have to follow the same pattern and the same throw. And you can pop this up and put that other one right down in here. Very, very quick and simple. The other thing that you want to do with your irrigation system, and this is the challenge for everyone in order to save water, is that you need to know that this is working efficiently. And one of the ways to do that is put out a catch can test. What I have done is I put my tuna cans out here. Thank goodness my grandkids love tuna, so I got lots of tuna cans, and I can put those out in one area, one zone of my irrigation system, and I can run this. Run it for 5 minutes, and then I can look at each can and I can look and see how much water has been put out. If every can has the same amount of water in it, then I know my system is working well, and I have what is called even distribution. The landscape is going to get wet very evenly. I'm not going to have wet spots and dry spots, things like that. But if I do this and one can is overflowing and one can barely has any water in it, and there's different measures of water in each of those cans, then guess what? It's not working efficiently, and I'm going to have wet spots over there where the can's overflowing. I'm going to have dry spots over here where the can is barely wet. And so what we have to do then is go back to the system, turn it on, and look at each irrigation head to see why we're not getting that good distribution of water. And what we can see is that sometimes these things don't pop up like they should, they don't put water out like they should, and there are various things we have to look at when this is happening. If they're not popping up properly and throwing the water the distance we need covered, then sometimes they are clogged up, or sometimes there's a minor leak somewhere and they don't have the pressure they need to do that. We have to realize we're working with plastic pipe, plastic threading, and after you've mowed over these things 75 times or 175 times, sometimes that threading gets stretched out and you can have a minor leak. A minor leak means you're not going to get the pressure that you need to throw that water out properly. So all of those things need to be checked. To check to see if it's just stopped up, you just pull this up, put this, undo this, and then you immediately look at this. Look how dirty this is. Do you see that? See all that dirt in the filter? I could rinse that out, pop this back down in here, look in here, and knock all that soil, all that debris out. Sometimes it's calcium, not debris, and you can rinse that out or replace these nozzles. To replace these nozzles, the spray nozzles, is about $1.50. Remember, you have to match the pattern and the throw. And then to upgrade to the multi-stream rotators, it's about $4.50, $5.50 to do that. One of the other things I want you to see on all of these is that there is a screw at the top of each of these. And what I can do if I see that the water is being thrown too far and therefore going on my driveway, going on the sidewalk, going where it doesn't need to go, I'm either going to switch it out and change the pattern, but I can adjust the throw. You can make a shorter throw or a longer throw by putting the screw clockwise or counterclockwise. By tightening it down clockwise, you're going to shorten the throw. By opening it up and doing counterclockwise, you're going to increase the throw. And that's one of the other things you can do. Okay, so once you make sure that it's working efficiently, having good even distribution, then it's time to set this clock. So what you want to do is, again, run it, and you want to run it for maybe 3 minutes, 5 minutes, something of that sort. And then what you're going to try to do is figure out how long you need to run it by the depth the water goes. So run it for that very, very short period of time, and then what you want to do is get a very high-tech screwdriver. This is the best tool you can use, because what you can do, it's like sticking a toothpick in a cake. It'll go in the soil and it'll let you know how deeply that water's gone. And why I want you to run at a short period, and then I want you to wait about 30 minutes, because gravity will pull that water down further after that 30 minutes, and the capillary action also of the soil spreads the water. And so we're going to take the screwdriver and insert it into the soil. And whoa, look at this. It's going right into the soil, which indicates to me this soil is very wet. You can't do that in heavy, dry clay soil. And so then I can pull this up, and I can slightly do it at an angle. And so just like your toothpick comes out of the cake, moist cake on it, if it's still not done enough, so will the screwdriver. And you can see that the mud is all the way up and down the screwdriver. So I know that I've irrigated to my depth of 6 inches. Then what I can do is come back to the clock and set this clock. Now usually after 3 or 5 minutes of irrigation, you haven't got it down the 6 inches, except in planted bed areas where you prepared the soil and maintain a mulch layer. In a lawn area, you're usually going to have to run it a little bit longer than that. Spray irrigation, a little bit longer than that also. So what we have to do then is set our clock. You set the day and time, because we have to remember that some of our cities are still under water restrictions, and you have assigned day to water. So the day and time is very important to set on here. And then we're going to go to each zone and set the run time. Not all zones will have the same run time. It's very important that you do this in order to figure that out. Then this is one of the newer controllers that's on the market that makes it very, very easy to set the run time. So say I irrigated for 3 minutes and it only went down 1 inch. Let's say that. And so what do I need to do? If I need to get it down the 6 inches, then I need that 5 more inches. So I need 5 times 3 more minutes. So that's going to bring it up to about 18 minutes. Now, this is a hypothetical thing. And so what I want to do then is in zone 1, which is this lawn area, I want to set it to run 18 minutes. But what if I let it run, and then after 5 minutes, I see the water's not going in the soil any longer, it's running off. And with spray irrigation, that often happens because it puts water out faster than the ground can absorb it. And so this newer type controller gives me the capability to do the cycle and soak method, where I can divide that 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, and then the controller will automatically run it for a few minutes, wait 30 minutes, run it a second time, run it a third time, run it a fourth time. Very, very important. Now the older controllers, you can do the same thing, but you have different start times. And so say in my lawn area, I wanted to run it twice instead of once, 9 minutes apiece. And so I would set 1 start time, put that 9 minutes run time in there. I'd let all my other zones run by the time I figured out they need to run, and then I would come back to the lawn area and run it again and zero out all the other zones that second run time. The other thing that you want on your irrigation controllers is a device like this. This is a rain and freeze sensor. This happens to be a wireless one. This I would hook in my garage to my controller, and this I would put outside somewhere where rainfall could fill up this cup, and the temperature is tested right here. In this cup, you'll see that we have these little leather rings on here, and these little leather rings, as long as they're wet, will override the controller. And so you can set this to have air coming through here and dry those out very quickly, or you could shut this up tight so it doesn't dry out quickly, and that way it will even override it for 1, 2, or maybe even 3 days after it's rained if you've gotten a significant rainfall. And you could set this cup for the depth you want to collect there. So a rain and freeze sensor is very, very important so that we're not wasting water when we don't need to be watering. Now I'd like to talk about drip irrigation. Drip irrigation is one of the most efficient ways we can water. It waters under low pressure and it waters very, very slowly. And on our heavy clay soil, that helps a great deal to get the better distribution of the water, and also it's very, very water saving. So what I've set up here is an example of the different type of drip irrigation devices that you can use. Out here in the WaterWise garden, what we have done is put in a drip irrigation tubing like this. This tubing comes with the holes already in it. They come, you can buy them that are 12 inches apart, 18 inches apart, or 24 inches apart. And so I'm going to show you how this works. I've got it set up as if it was hooked in an irrigation zone, just like you would have your spray irrigation set up. Here's your valve that speaks to your controller. And then I've put a filter in, and the filter helps get some of that calcium out of the water. And then I have a pressure regulator here, because in this case these work under very, very low pressure. You don't want high pressure on there. So whatever your pressure is coming through, this will bring it down to the 1530 psi the drip irrigation tubing works best on. So let me turn this one on first, and then what I'm going to see here is that as this water comes out here, it drips, drip, drips, 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 very, very, very slowly. At 15 psi, it drips out at 0.6 gallons per hour. If you go up to 25, 30 psi, it drips out about 0.9 gallons per hour, whereas your spray irrigation is putting water out about 2.5 gallons a minute. And so sometimes that's why that happens, that the ground can absorb the water as fast as it's coming out. And so drip irrigation is more efficient on our heavy clay soils for that reason. Even in our prepared beds, it's beneficial because it applies the water slowly, right there on the spot. It has time to go infiltrate into the soil. Now, we also can use what is called micro tubing in order to deliver water out. And what I've done here on this side, I've set up this 1/2 inch tubing two different ways. One way is I've put the micro tubing, the 1/4 inch tubing with emitters or drippers right on the end of each of these. And so I could actually put those out. But I've also put a dripper or spray nozzle right on the tubing. The tubing comes without any holes in it. You punch the holes in with a tubing hole puncher exactly where you want the water to go. So let me show you how this works. And in this case, you can see what I've done is I put a little tiny spray nozzle here. This is something that you might want to put under like one of your rose bushes. I put a little dripper here that's going to drip the water either as fast as slow as I want to adjust it to. It's an adjustable one. Not all are adjustable, but this happens to be one. So I can tighten that down and have it drip, 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 drop a minute if I want, or I can open it up and let it actually spray a little bit like this one. What I've done with this one is the same type of thing, only this one comes with a punch that I can punch into the ground under a shrub, or you know where else these are great if you have a patio with a lot of container plants and hanging baskets. You can actually use this 1/4 inch tubing, the 1/2 inch tubing along the edge of the patio, and the 1/4 inch tubing to come up into your container plants. Cool way to water. So what I've done is I've tightened this down so hardly any water's coming out, but what I can do then is adjust it. And so I can get a very, very slow drip, very slow drip, tighten it down even more, make it even slower. Do you see that? And so it's a great advantage to apply the water slowly exactly where you want it. So drip irrigation is another great option for conserving water in the landscape. Well, now that I've convinced you, I hope, that drip irrigation might save you a lot of water, therefore a lot of money, and therefore you might want to convert your existing irrigation system to drip irrigation. I want to. You know, and so how easy is that? Can you do it yourself? The answers are yes to both of those questions, or you can contract with a licensed irrigator to do that for you. The average irrigation zone, and I'm saying average, that has spray nozzles is going to have about 4 pop-up heads in that zone. Now this is miniaturized so that we can, you know, show this demonstration, of course. And what you're going to want to do is use one of these risers in order to hook your drip irrigation to this. And so what we would be doing then is we would literally be taking all the sprinkler sprinkler heads off of these risers and capping them off, believe it or not. And what we're going to do is only use one of these risers to actually hook our drip irrigation to it. And so what we need to look at are different ways of doing that. In a shrub area where a lot of people are not walking, we might want to use the little micro irrigation device in order to convert this. You have to convert a whole zone. You cannot have drip irrigation running at at gallons per hour, and have spray nozzles working at gallons per minute in the same zone. And so that's why almost all of these, if you're going to convert to the 1/4-inch tubing or the 1/2-inch tubing, might be capped off, or you might put these devices on there. And so what this is, it's a converter. And we're going to put this on the riser, and what we have the capacity of doing then is putting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these 1/4-inch tubings on there. The length of the tubing does not matter. They're pressure compensated here, so it reduces the pressure, so it puts it out very slowly for you. And then this can go all over around this riser, this riser, this riser, this riser, in order to irrigate that same area with drippers or the little tiny micro sprays. So this is one way of doing that. The other way of doing it is you can actually convert it to the 1/2-inch tubing. The 1/2-inch tubing that I showed you in the last demonstration has the holes already in it. And you would put it in a pattern to cover that whole area in a grid fashion, so that you would actually have one of those holes, one of those drippers in each area. Now, if I'm going to do this method and use one of these risers to start that tubing, I'm going to have low pressure. There's two ways of doing that. I can purchase a replacement for that sprinkler head that is pressure compensated, pressure regulating, and it also is a filter. And so I could put that here instead of just this, and therefore I would be regulating my pressure at the same time, filtering it at the same time, having the capacity to put in my tubing to start right there. These are barb fittings, and your tubing fits right on here. You can loop it around the whole area that the spray nozzles were spraying, and then come back and forth through that area with T's. That's how easy this could be. Or what I could do in order to use this type of device, and this is a higher form, more regulated form of this, I would continue capping all these others off, and I would go into my valve box of this one zone. You have to remember, each zone has its own valve. And so I could go into the valve box, and I could put the pressure regulator and a filter in that valve box. So here's my filter, and here is my pressure regulator. The valve needs the regular pressure in order to work. So what I would do when I go into my valve box is I would actually, cut this pipe here, or if I have a place where I could unscrew it, I would unscrew it. And then what I would do then is I would put my filter and my pressure regulator right here. Is that cool? And then that way, this can be in the ground, out of sight, out of mind, and then we're good to go. We have to put our our valve back on there, and then the same controller that is running your system already, the spray valves, would now be running your drip tubing. That's how easy this could be. You could do it yourself, or you can call a licensed irrigator to do this for you. I showed you 3 different methods because some people find digging up the valve box and putting these in a little bit more difficult than adding the pressure compensator devices right on top of the risers. If you have any questions about this type of thing, almost every irrigation company that puts out drip tubing has tutorials on their websites, video tutorials as well as written and drawing pictures. So if you have any questions, visit those websites.